Hey everyone, I'm just going to keep the ball rolling. Before we bring up our very first panel, I wanted to tell you something totally unrelated to golf food, but an amazing study that was conducted. It's kind of weird, but what they did is they took a mouse, and this is in Stanford University, took a mouse, and they placed a mouse in water so deep that it would have to tread. So they put this mouse in this container of water, and what they did is that they allowed it to tread long enough to where it started to go in, basically was basing as losing its will to live. So it was starting to drown, and then they rescued the mouse. It took 15 minutes, by the way. The mouse basically treaded for 15 minutes, and they rescued the mouse, and they put the mouse to the side for an hour. And then they put the mouse back inside this water to see how long it would tread for the second time. Does anybody want to guess how long it treaded the second time? Just raise your hand if you have a guess. Anybody? How long? More than 6 hours. Anyone else? 1 hour. 60 hours. 60 hours. It's actually called the hope study. And what's fascinating about it is, it means when there's hope inside somebody's soul or something, it continues to go on, knowing that there is something on the other side, because it was rescued. And I want us to understand that some people are saying, oh, the food space is dead, or I hear this one a lot, the movie industry is dead. I don't believe it. I believe there's hope. I believe there's massive opportunities. And I believe the idea of being resilient is so important because we are resilient and we all have hope. And our first panel for golf food for here is all around what's going on in the F&B space and the resilience and how to be agile to prove what the next steps are to secure a positive and strong future. And I'd like to do is bring up our first panelists. Can we all come on up here? Also need some microphones for the panelists, so bring them on up. So our first panel, come on up. Let me see. Guys, you know who that is, right? We got them on. Come on, guys, come on up. Where's our panelists? We should all be ready, because otherwise I'm just going to give you more facts and figures and tips and tricks. Not sure if you guys want to hear all that. But let's, Virginia, where are you, Virginia? Where's our first panel? Come on, first panel. You guys all should be up, ready to go. Yeah, it's a fascinating study, isn't it? The idea of hope. How about this one? What does it take to create a city of the future? And when I say a city of the future, so this city is considered a developing city, not developed. London is a developed city. Chicago is a developed city, which means is the infrastructure is intact. This is a developing city. And in a developing city, it means that's where all the opportunity is. So I want you to think of somebody that's going through development, like personal development, you know, Tony Robbins and all that. Those are people that are trying to find the next them. When someone says, I've already done it, they've stagnated. A developed city needs a couple of things. One, it needs, of course, educational infrastructure, which it does have here. Easy immigration in and out. It needs financial capital. It needs fairly inexpensive rent. And the last thing, which is crazy, if you look at any developing city, and this is crazy, it needs an EDM scene, electronic dance music. And as long as it has those 5 components, it's a developing city. So think about the cities where it's an incubation city and great entrepreneurship's coming out of it. Generally, it has those 5 components. So let's bring up our first panel and let's dive into that. You like that one, Virginia? Grab another panel. Do we have our other panelists? We should have one more person joining us. No, we don't. Oh, this is great. This is even more quaint. So, can I ask real quick, who here is in the actual restaurant, who's in the restaurant space, owning a restaurant, managing a restaurant? 1, 2, 3. Who here is in the, specifically that manages supply chain? Anyone in the supply chain? Who here just likes food? All right. Hey, can you do me a favor, each one of you? Can you introduce yourselves? Tell us, do you have your microphone there? Tell us who you are, where you're from, a little about your business, and then what makes you cool? What makes you uniquely cool? And it can't be I'm a father of 2, or, you know, I graduated with a double bachelor's in something. That's not cool. Cool is something that you've done that is a challenge in life. So go ahead. Who are you? What do you do? And what makes you cool?
Okay, so my name is Virginia. I'm Spanish. I've been now for 21 years in mainly in the field. So for 10 years I was working for the European Union in different countries in the Maghreb, Mashrek, in Central Asia, in the Caucasus, in Russia. And then for 11 years, in the last 11 years, I've been working for the UN, mainly in humanitarian settings, Afghanistan, Syria, Lebanon, Gaza,
cool.
Jerusalem. That's cool. Can I get my
cool
cool
right
already?
Pretty cool.
That was a difficult question. How on earth am I cool? I'm not sure. Because I'm here.
Cool.
But I've been working for the UN in the last 10 years, mainly in humanitarian coordination with OCHA, with UNRWA, and now I'm working for the World Food Programme. And I'll tell you a little bit more afterwards about what the World Food Programme does.
I do want to hear about that. But before you run out your cool factor, go for it. Tell us who you are.
So I'm Imran. I work for Fonterra, which is the world's largest dairy exporter. I look after supply chain for Middle East and Africa. What makes me cool is probably my hair, I guess.
No, put you a little closer. If you were 70 and you had that hair, that would make you cool.
Yeah, but that will happen. Don't worry about it.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, and
no, you know what makes you cool is you've lived in about 6 different locations in the last couple of years. Malaysia was just one of them.
I've been all around this region. I moved to this region when I was 9 months old because my father used to work for Saudi Aramco. So I've been in this region. This is my second home. I've lived in Bahrain, Saudi, Malaysia. I'm basically from Pakistan. And hopefully in a couple of months I'll be moving to Amsterdam, so that is something.
And you're telling me how amazing Bahrain is.
So yeah, me and Ken were discussing. I personally, within this region, somehow like Bahrain. It feels home. It has that culture which I enjoy. My family enjoys the food that they have. You know, they have that little fish which is just crispy enough that you can just chew. So yeah, it's just amazing. It's serene. It has the openness of Dubai, whereas, you know, the cost of living of Saudi Arabia, you can go end to end. It's very humble city. So that's personally, I love
Bahrain
it.
is one of your favorite places. Where's one of your favorite places to live, Virginia?
I've not had the chance to see Bahrain, but I'm very impressed by Dubai, by the way.
Are you?
It's incredible. I just saw the buildings here.
This is your first time here?
It's actually my third time, but I was just telling my colleagues I've only been here, come in, come out, so I need to discover this city. It's very, very impressive. But my favorite places, I think anywhere where I can be useful.
I like that, but the reason why I was going to ask is you said it right away, and I think you will say too. You said the food. You said Bahrain, and you said the food, and it's interesting. Our favorite places, food is around that, right? I just came back from Nepal. I love the food. It was the first thing I said about Nepal. And then I talked about the mountains, and I talked about, but the food is so important to establish a base. Do we agree with that? So where would be some of your favorite foods?
Well, I love the Middle East food. I think Lebanese food is
Lebanese,
fantastic.
right? Layla's,
sure
right over here,
that.
Layla's. You got to go to Layla's. I'm just going to tell you. It's rock. Oh, yeah.
I think some of the best things. Also, I had it in Gaza, I have to say. But
I've never. So you look at what's happening in the supply chain. This is the biggest word we've been hearing the last 2 years is supply chain. You come from a very interesting, because your supply chain comes out of New Zealand.
Yeah.
Right? So you're literally on the other side of the planet, and during the last couple of years, it's been a challenge because the flights coming in and out have to have been a real challenge for you.
Absolutely. So Fonterra ships around 2.4 million ton of dairy out of New Zealand to different part of the world, every single country. It's the world's largest dairy exporter. Basically what happened was that they started having cows and dairy and not enough people to consume it. They got better and better and better at it and eventually found out a way that how to ship it to the world and share that dairy expertise and knowledge with everyone. So for Fonterra, it has been challenging. However, I think one thing that we have done over past 10 odd years is that build those relationships with the right people who have helped us in this journey. So honestly speaking, if I compare it with others, Fonterra was a little less impacted because we had that sticky relationships that we had with the likes of Musk and the logistics people who prioritized us because of the relationship. It was not anything else, because
Yeah, but you couldn't change flights coming in and out of New Zealand. You couldn't change. I mean, that was the problem, wasn't that?
so luckily our business operates on more on ocean. So
Really?
it's the ships, etc. And throughout the pandemic, obviously there were uncertainties because of labor and ports shutting down and COVID getting impacted. However, still we were amongst the best. Still, our suppliers preferred us because we were at least somewhat certain that
Relationships.
that what will happen. Relationships.
Goes back to that-
stickier relationships.
I like hearing that. Tell us what you said. You wanted to tell a little more of where the UN fits into all of this. Give us a little more information.
So, World Food Programme, that's the UN agency that deals with food. But originally, we were actually the supply chain arm of another UN agency. So that's actually how we were born. So the World Food Programme is today the largest humanitarian agency. We provide support for 115 million people, and that's in 84 countries. Deep field. This is not just this is actually in the most difficult places, and we have 20,000 staff. Most of them are really in the most difficult locations. About 89-90% of the people are actually in the field. And our expertise is about bringing food, but also livelihoods to people whenever there is an emergency strikes, whenever there is a cyclone, whenever there is a earthquake, whenever there is a conflict. So we work in the middle of the conflict, and we work in the middle of the difficulties to ensure that on one hand people have access to food for the emergencies, but also we coordinate, and we are the UN lead on logistics, but also on emergency telecommunications. We coordinate and help the others get there whenever there is an emergency and whenever we have to deliver very, very quickly. And so in order to do that, we have to work a lot on supply chain, on digital, on technology, and work with different partners. So we work on emergencies, but we also, and a lot of what we do is also about creating resilience, preventing, mitigating. I can tell you a bit later about maybe a couple of tools that help us do that, digital tools that help us do that. But it's important that we have also tools and actions to do resilience. We work with the governments to do development, to prevent people from becoming hungry. And just to say, today we are seeing the worst rates of food insecurity that we have ever seen. Because of, they call it the 3 Cs, is conflict, climate shocks, but also COVID. The impact on COVID has brought to the world the worst situation in we were saying we produce so much food, and in a world where so much food and enough food is produced to feed everyone, we have 272 million people that are in acute food security, and out of that 41 million that are at the brink of starvation, at the brink of famine in 43 countries. So we can do something, and we need to do something.
Okay, you both of you are an hour by yourselves on Q&A, so we're going to try to blend this together, okay? I want to go back now because I want to dive into what you're doing because it's fascinating. If you're doing shipments via freight on vessels, it's how long to get to, what's the longest distance on time parameter?
Easily
10 days? 14
Sorry?
days?
No, it's easily 60 days.
60.
Yeah, to Dubai nowadays, it used to be 30. Nowadays, it's 45 sometimes.
So what happens when a customer of yours goes out of business or closes because of COVID? How did you manage that situation?
So again, it's about information and getting that clarity. So because of our relationship that we have with the likes of the logistics companies, we have been able to intimidate them early on. It's about anticipation. So back in the day when really COVID hit us, we were very upfront about it, that this is going to happen, so that people then can put on strategies on how to mitigate them, rather than just getting a surprise. For sure, if I go to one of my biggest customers and tell them, after a week, you're not getting something that you were supposed to get, they are going to be not happy with us. So it was all about information, that connectivity, and having that customer relationship that we have to intimidate them and tell them that, okay, this is what is going to come. So if I remember correctly, in April, we have a huge food service business over here, right? And, you know, the hotels were shut down and everything. It was exactly the opposite problem. The problem was that everything is coming and there's no hotels operating.
Yeah.
What would happen? There would be a lot of wastage, etc.
Right.
However, we were able to tell them early on, we were able to cancel few of those things. Those things were actually redirected to the markets in consumer space because people were cooking more at home. So what I'm...
So you find alternatives right
Yeah,
away.
of course. So that time was very hard on the team, but also very exciting in that sense. You know, finding those solutions was brilliant. Yeah.
Because I want to talk a little about historical, what happened in the last couple of years, but what has been learned so it can be processed moving forward, because there's a lot of learning opportunities. So if you're dealing with traumatic situations, untimely situations, so for example, the volcano in Tonga, we didn't expect that, obviously, and then you have to rush, or the hurricane or the earthquake in Haiti, those are unexpected, but you're ready to go right away. COVID was a long, arduous process that you saw where things were going. Did you learn from your past of being ready for moment situations to handle the COVID situations, or is it still learning in process?
I think we should all be learning, but I think we definitely learn already something. And as Imran said from Fonterra, WFP has been working in supply chain for 60 years. And that's also something that helped us. The fact that we already had our sources, the relationships, they knew that, they trusted us. So we managed in a world of increasing prices, of pipeline breaks, we actually managed to continue. And not only we managed to continue, when COVID struck and all the airlines, commercial airlines, came to a halt, right, we put in place a network of flights, also together with the private sector. We put in place that network that covered 171 countries.
That's amazing.
And in 1 year, so for 6 months we were the only ones. Then afterwards we started, obviously, as soon as commercial flights came in, then we started stepping out. But we covered the humanitarian flights, so that humanitarian operators that had to still deliver in those places where the needs didn't stop. In fact, they increased, right? So we needed to deliver, and we needed to put in place a worldwide system where we provided transport for humanitarian and development workers, emergency cargo for medical supplies for all over the world, and also coordination in terms of emergency telecommunications, but also in terms of cargo, and trying to find solutions for all those problems that were coming. So we managed to step up and cover those needs, right? All that is also with the private sector, because we don't do that alone. We do that locally. Today we procure $2.6 billion in services and goods. This is also transport companies, this is also private sector that we work with in every time.
How big is your team?
To answer, 20,000 people globally. So not too
Not in
bad.
your office.
Not
What's your
too
office
bad.
in?
Not too bad. Well, my office 131. Now I deal with private sector partnerships. And one thing I wanted to say about COVID, if you let me, is I think it brought up to light the extreme fragility of our supply chain systems, right? The fact that today, already for a few years, because of globalization, we have our raw materials in 10 and 12 countries, and we need to bring them all in order to put it here and then to transport it all over the world somewhere. And we are totally dependent on those complex systems functioning. And COVID brought it up to light. What if they don't function, or they don't function that well? Thankfully,
Absolutely.
companies like Fonterra had it, and we managed to well, what can we do, right? But it did take us a little bit by surprise. So I think what we need to look at, and I think that with the examples that you have mentioned, is what can we do next? What you said, right? Nexters.
That's right.
Well,
Nexus.
what can we do next? But why don't we hear more from the others? So we can tell you a little bit about what we've done, but
I do want to, again, I'm trying to go between, you're both great interviews by yourselves. What happens I'm gonna try to tiptoe around this. If you remember, 10 years ago, orange juice was the big crave. Orange juice. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden health concerns came out, and companies like Tropicana, which was bought by Pepsi for $2.2 billion, they had to sell it for what they bought it for. They didn't make a profit on it because they started looking at orange juice not being as healthy as one would think. There's an alternative milk craze that's starting to hit. How do you deal in a market like that?
So, milk is one of the foods that has been there since ages. So, I personally, and again, it's very personal, I personally don't believe in all of these fad diets and fad milks. I think there is so much more to milk that we can do. It has been superfood for 1.3 billion people in India. They consider it as food of God, superfood, and it really is. It has all the nutrients, etc. So even if milk will not, let's say, not get consumed in its real space, in its drinkability, there's so much more that Fonterra is already investing on. So for example, we have a plan to invest $1 billion in the nutritional science. How can milk make you sleep better? How can it make your stress levels down? Because it has all of those phospholipids and all of those things like that.
But you understand, it's kind of like the petroleum industry, right?
Yeah.
As cars now move further away and go towards EV, they have to find an alternative use. You're very much in the same situation, right?
Yeah, but dairy, we believe that dairy is always going to be strong. We have seen butter was bad and suddenly butter is very good. So what our Fonterra personal belief is that dairy industry is the right industry to be in. The food is great. It does have that nutritional value. It will remain, it will cross. Might be the use might be a little bit different than what it is today.
Right.
But it's still, the dairy industry and its requirement will still be strong as we see 10 years.
I was just
20 years.
blown away by the percentage of lactose intolerant in this generation compared to the prior one. And it seems like there's this I want to say we're seeing more of this happening throughout the world, which didn't exist 20 years ago. And I don't know where the connection is, but that's got to, you have to make lactose-free milk and products like that.
So,
and I know
so
you're
again,
doing
as
that.
I said, that there is $1 billion that will be invested till 2030 by Fonterra alone on the R&D of these kind of things. That how can we solve problems and how can we find solution? I think Paul rightly mentioned that it is not only one problem that we are going to.
That's right.
It will have multiple facets of you solve one problem which will kind of resolve so many other issues. It has the butterfly effect, exactly.
Right.
But one of the examples I was thinking as it was being told by the other panelists was the digitalization of supply chain. It is a solution which is just giving you information. However, it could resolve the issue of your wastage. If you are wasting 30%, you might be wasting 10-15%, and that is the food that comes back into the chain.
I get it on where you're at with waste, because you're a B2B on your side, right?
We are both B2B and B2C.
But where's your primary business?
It's B2B, yeah.
B2B, right?
Yeah.
So once you hand it off to the businesses, whatever they do is up to them. On the B2C side, obviously you want to conserve, you want to understand waste. How big is your B2B compared to your B2C side?
I would say 70% is B2B. However, we do work with those B2B because we have the science and we have the knowledge of dairy that many of our partners don't. So for example, we have a whole technical and R&D department who goes into those B2B customers and work with them that how to make things more efficient, how to make more cost effective, and how can they resolve the issues because of shared expertise that we have.
That makes sense, right? It's an exciting time. I get it. And technology's really enhanced your business. Virginia, I want to go, you use the word, you have a procurement side that has to be massive, right? So when you look at your supply chain partners, that database has to be incredible, and relationships is what you brought up is key, because you have to know where things are. I want you to kind of verbally give us that map of the type of partners you have that on the external side. So for example, on grains, how many different feeder mechanisms do you have just for like grains? How many do you have for green leafy? How many, you know what I'm saying? How many different entities do you have to deal with on a regular basis?
So as I said, yeah, we procure 2.6 billion. Our budget last year was 9.6 billion.
Oh my God.
So 2.6 billion was procured in goods and services. And we operate, as I said, in 84 countries.
Right.
So it goes, obviously our main business is food, and is packages of food. We call it a food basket. It's basically, is limited in terms of variety, but we go into mainly cereals, pulses, salt,
Is it white labeled?
oil.
Is it all white labeled?
Yeah.
It
no.
is.
Well, you have, yeah. What you have is, so you have all the different packages that we buy either globally, and then we move it around, and we try to do as much as we can locally. So at the moment, we buy a quarter of the food that we buy it locally. And what we do is with the rest of the programs, we try to produce much more locally. So, because I think one of the things that we have learned precisely from the COVID impact is we need to localize more and more and more.
Yes.
So we work with partners globally, so a lot with India, Mexico, with definitely also with the Gulf, but also locally we try to buy not only food, but everything we need to get our operations. We definitely have a lot of contracts with transporters. We transport 4.2 million tons per year of food. And then additionally, we bring also another several millions of medical equipments and other equipments for others, right? In order to do that, we have millions of contracts with national transporters, because we have our own trucks. We have 5,600 trucks. We have 100 aircraft.
Those are yours.
30 our own. Yeah.
So
yeah.
why wouldn't you have then local,
30
your
ships.
own farms that are yours, as opposed to outsourcing it to somebody else?
No, we don't. I mean, the thing is, the food is produced by the producers. We buy it, and we try to help them produce more. The idea of the World Food Programme is to get out of business. If we do our job correctly, we will be out of business, because what we want is, the producers, the farmers, to produce the food and to be able to ensure the sustainability of livelihoods nationally and globally. We're just a mere conduit in order to support the food to be locally produced, and support the governments, the private sector, the other stakeholders, to get to a certain level of livelihoods where we are not needed, where the UN can go. So basically, just to finish, whenever you say, who are you partnering with, is a lot of food providers, but also a lot of services provider, definitely transport, and then also others, data management. We also have to, we work on nutrition, we work on land, so, seeds and other.
It's amazing.
If I may add one thing to this, because one thing that a lot of people have learned through COVID is something they are calling nearshoring. However, there is a term that I have listened to someone, and I cannot really recall, but it was, don't be mindlessly global or hopelessly local. So you have to really find... You have to really find the balance, that where you go local and where you can really make it global. At the end of the day, it is about feeding people in your case, right? In most of our cases, right? And then you have to do it as economically as possible. And sometimes you just have to find that balance. All local is also not the answer, and all global is also not the answer. So just wanted to add on from
Say that quote again. By the way, if you're tweeting or whatever you're doing, hashtag golf food, that right there is a great quote. Say it again.
So it's, don't be mindlessly global and hopelessly local.
Yeah, that's a great.
So you just have to find the balance.
It's a great tweet. I love that.
And that's with data, if I may. That's how do you know what is the best choice? And I think that's with data. Today, we are more and more, moving to further and further digitalization. So we need to take advantage of that. We have so much data that we need to use better, because at the end, we need to deliver better food, timely, and we need to deliver, for us, in any case, it's very, very important to deliver the most amount of food.
And the most challenging parts of the world, any specific region or country that really is the most challenging, or is it always changing?
You have plenty. I mean, conflict areas are definitely very, very changing, very challenging. You know, for instance, you have Afghanistan, which is challenging because of the situation now, but also because of the geography. You know, also South Sudan is again conflict, but also geography. There are areas where we cannot pass during the winter. So you need to preposition the food early, so that you don't, you know, people, otherwise, if we wait until the winter is there, we will not be able to transport food. So definitely geography, conflict, and then of course whenever you have an earthquake or whatever, that's
those
definitely
catastrophic
very,
situations,
very,
right?
very complicated.
God, it's fascinating. Are you using blockchain in anything you're doing yet?
We are actually, and we are partnering for blockchain. We are partnering for also some other digital tools, you know, to optimize the systems, and with the private sector. And that's also why, you know, in terms of trying to plan better, trying to use those data better, so that we can do scenario planning. We can be much more efficient. We can also prevent and identify where there could be problems in the future, and we do that globally and we do that nationally. And I think that's the key for success. We can do more about that, and we try to partner also with the private sector, and we have actually got the best results by partnering with the private sector on this.
Are you doing anything on the blockchain side?
So there is work happening in the head office with Fonterra. You know, we are again partnering with the right amount of people to see that how we can use it, but a lot of work on the other digital platform that already exist, and then how can we, you know, really utilize them. One of the things I would like to share, actually, I was reading that on bananas, you have your bananas everywhere on the breakfast, right? And the supply chain is really complicated. You have to ship it on the right day so that it's perfectly ripened.
Very perishable.
So something like digital can really help, you know, eliminating that food waste. For example, if you see that the ship is now coming a week late, you can actually, from the, you know, from your home or from your office, you can actually turn the oxygen or the carbon dioxide levels on the ship in a different way so that they are ripened exactly at the time that it would come. In olden days, it would mean all 50% wastage. But now you can really solve that problem by having and adopting these kind of solutions. So again, from Fonterra's perspective, we are working with Maersk very closely, and Maersk is very heavy on this blockchain. They are our partners for logistics to all of the countries. There's a special company set up because, you know, New Zealand is a small country, and then they have to manage all of this. So there's a lot of work that is happening in that space.
I just got this Google Fi system that allows me to get 50 megs up and down anywhere in the world. Okay, and it's about 200 dirhams a month, unlimited data. Okay, which to me is pretty amazing. Okay, but if you start thinking about accessibility and having anything and everything plugged into the internet, maybe with Skylink, Elon Musk technology, I wonder how that changes the environment to where you could have always on access to what's going on in supply chain, what's going on with shipping. It's a game changer. That might be one of the big game changers in the world, and that is always being connected all the time, especially in these hard to reach areas, as you've mentioned. And what I'd like you to do is, we have a few minutes left. From everything that you've learned, you've talked about how fragile things were, which I think is important, how important relationships are. What kind of things can you teach the audience today that they could implement to help them in what they're doing? Something that a trick, something that's unique. I want you to think about that. And if you have any questions, I've been looking at them because they're fascinating. First, let's give them a hand for just even being here, right? I'm going to do it. Because it's amazing, this information, and have access to this. I want to thank you for coming out. But what can you teach us? What kind of teaching things? I know it's a challenge, right?
It's a challenging question, but just referring to what you just said, hope is a beautiful thing. So you have said that, about the mouse
Isn't that
story.
amazing? 60 hours.
60 hours?
Yeah, 60.
If that can do for a mouse, humans are resilient as ever. So one thing that I would say that, there is hope, actually exciting times coming, especially if you're in supply chain. If you have a career in supply chain, there has never been a better time to be in supply chain. 5 years ago, when I said somebody that I work in supply chain, they would look at my face and say, can you please explain exactly what you do?
It's true.
Yeah, but now, kind of everybody knows it.
Yeah, but COVID's really made it an issue, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and if you watch what's going on in these countries, especially with these blockades that are going on, these citizens blockades, it brings that to what's going on in Canada, and now I think in Australia, America's about to do this. That shows to the average public that there is a supply chain. And I think it's important because all the dirty business that we have to deal with, most consumers have no idea what that is. And I think they appreciate something more when they are aware of it. Don't you agree? Yeah.
So again, if you want your career in supply chain, I think this is a brilliant time. Work on the digital skills. I think that is going to be future. And again, blockchain is coming up big. So
Why are you excited about blockchain? Why does it matter?
I think it just creates the whole transparency in the system. It kind of brings everything on the table. Few years ago, maybe 10 years ago, you weren't able to go on a website and find out what is the cheapest flight. But right now you have a skyscanner.com. You just go there and you can pick up and stuff like that. For now...
Skyscanner, everyone. There's a secret one there. It's a good one.
I personally use it, that's why. Not paid. Something of similar sort is very soon happening with the shipping industry. And it is only possible with the use of the technologies like blockchain, because right now everybody operates in their personal ecosystem. But that blockchain kind of brings everybody on the table for everyone and create the transparency.
So hope is
Hope.
that thing. So you're not teaching us that, you're reminding us how important it is, and I respect that. That's important. What can you share with us through everything that you've been watching and learning that could be a good learning example for us?
He said hope, but he also said data, and I think I'll take that one. That's probably be hopefully ready.
Well, you think it's good, something else is going to happen again?
I think, well, yeah. We have to be ready. That's precisely what I think we should learn from it. It caught us by surprise. I mean, COVID caught us by surprise, but the thing is, even if it would have been something smaller, now we are suffering, the chips, right? It's becoming a political issue, chips. This was coming, we knew it was coming, right? We have to be looking. So I think the main thing will be, let's get ready, because that's our motto as the World Food Program. We need to we need to
ready
be
for
as
what?
ready as we can for anything that can happen.
Because Virginia, I believe this was a dress rehearsal, COVID. I really do believe
it could very well be.
It was not serious, right? And I think whatever is next, and if we're not ready,
true.
and I think this is important.
And I think we need to be ready for whatever it comes. That's what, in the World Food Program, if we are not ready, then we will be late for every emergency response, right? So just to give you an example, and then we put it on supply chain. We have what we call a hunger map. What do we do that? We put data in terms of all the existing data, in terms of weather forecasts, rains, droughts, lean season. We bring all the information that is already available in terms of conflict. We bring all the information in terms of pipeline breaks, food availability in the region. It's existing information, and actually publicly existing information. And then, of course, we, in 84 countries, we have daily information about how markets are doing, how transport is doing, daily information. We put all that together. And in this hunger map, we have this big red spots, orange spots, yellow spots. We know we need to we need to think about that, and we need to think about this a year, 6 months in advance, right? Now we're doing the same, more and more, with supply chain. Let's bring all these data that exist together. That's why blockchain is so important. That's why transparent, but also integration of data will help us make scenario planning, be able to mitigate, identify possible issues, and come. And we will be seeing, we will be much more ready for another COVID type of event if we are ready, we have this data, and we are able to use it. And also we are collegial to share it as well. It's important. We can use it because we are a humanitarian organization, but here on this one, we have to be all together.
Yeah, open source a lot of this information. It's important. So how can this audience help you? Like, you're here not just to talk about what you're doing. You're looking for relationships or ideas. If you can say, my wish is, who would you want to talk to? Who would you want to meet? What kind of big picture ideas are you working on?
You're putting us on the spot, Ken, to be honest.
No, I'm not. I mean, let's be realistic. You're not going here just to sit here with me. You're here for a purpose. What's your purpose here at Gulf Food?
Again, so we have a stand. The basic purpose is that Fonterra is operating on, that how can we help our business partners or customers getting better at what they do today. So if you, for example, visit Fonterra's stall, you would see a lot of technology. You would see how to do things better, not just from cost perspective, but from taste perspective.
Think entrepreneurial. What are you trying to get out of this event? That's why I want you to be selfish. What would be the best outcome for you?
I leave you a moment to.
You got one?
Then, what you were asking is, what can we tell them, right? But here, the main thing for us is, what can you teach us? We are a UN organization. We bring things to scale globally. When we bring that for the benefit of people, for the most vulnerable, right? We can only do that with the private sector. The private sector is key for zero hunger. That's our mandate. And whatever you do locally, whatever you do nationally, it's important for us, and we are happy. We are we're looking forward to working more with you. But also, in terms of the best of the best, the best ideas, the biggest progress comes from the private sector.
Absolutely.
And we need to learn from you. And that's what I'm doing today. I brought from the field, 21 years of field, to be working with the private sector. And they wanted someone to come from the field because we need to understand. So I work now as dealing with relationship with the private sector, which means how can we partner with you to benefit from your expertise, and how can we work together to move forwards these global agenda items, but also national agenda items.
So if somebody is producing something at a high nutritional level, lower cost, new technology, you want to know about that.
Yeah.
Right?
And we want to know from the best of the best. And you are here, the best of the best. We need to learn from the best because we need to be the best organization providing that support. So that's what we are looking for. We have, I think, some partners here. Some partners help us with expertise, with people, with progress, with data management. We because of a partnership with Palantir, we are saving 30 million. And that's 30 million that can go to feed people, to support people. With UPS, we are saving 6 million, just efficiencies.
I love that.
The others, and we have Coitrums, I think, around here, they can give us funding. They can also help us in terms of support good nutritional demand, which is very important, and I think very many of you, Fonterra does it, but also others do it. So you can help us with funding, you can help us with expertise, with experts, and also to pass the word, because at the end, whatever we offer as nutritional product, whatever also is requested, the demand, in terms of the advocacy that we can do so that people are fed and that are fed properly with a proper meal. We were talking about good food, about healthy diets, all the advocacy that we can do together. We need to set the right agenda. It's not only about putting the products there, it's really we need to set the right agenda in terms of diets, in terms of what does it mean for...
You have an audacious task. It's audacious. It's massive. My thought for you, you need to look at what Red Bull has done, right? They made a horrible tasting drink cool, right? You have something that's nutritional, there's value. How do you make it cool? Because milk is not cool.
Not yet.
No, but there you go. how do you turn it into something that has a brand of coolness connected to it, to having an association? So you almost want to create your own TED environment. Think about TED designed by you, bringing all these great minds to talk that's sponsored by you. And you create these, I call them epicenters of opportunity all around the world that you manifest and you bring together.
That's a brilliant idea.
That's where you need to go for the next big step. I'm just saying, because I look at a brand like you have a cool brand, but no one really knows it on this B2C side. And they're the ones that are going to demand it from the B2B side. So that's just a thought. I want to thank both of you for spending time here and went like that, right? And went fast. Let's give it for our panels, and please make sure you have time to speak with them.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
so much.
Thank you,
I appreciate
Ken.
it.